When I hear the crowd, when I put on my stilettos, when like the moment right before when you're nervous and that other thing kind of takes over for you.
Did I sell my soul? I sold my soul for you. Now figure that out.
That I serve. My mom ain't here. My mama was sacrificed.
As we know, there was one point in time where Satan, as we know him now, was called Lucifer, and in heaven he was one of the highest angels in command and led in the music department. But he wanted to be just as big as God, and because of that he got kicked out of heaven and turned into what we now know him as Satan. And also, I want you to remember that when Satan tempted Eve in the garden, it was from the tree of truth and knowledge. His end goal was to make humans think that they are a god, because Satan himself wanted to be God. Now let me ask you, if your biggest skill was music and deception, what do you think you would use to deceive people? Music. Now, first off, we have to break it down from two different perspectives. There is the perspective of a consumer, and there's the perspective as the person who produces the music. So let's real quick talk about how music looks from the label's perspective, the people who actually sign all these artists. Now, one thing you may not know is that labels select artists not for their music, but for their influence on the people that listen to them. Now, you can pause and read. This is a comment from the last video. This is a real life example from a real person, and he is not the only one. There are many stories like this, where a label will get an artist and completely trying to change his look, his sound, and his appearance. I want you to know, when you sign on that dotted line and accept the record deal, they are in full control on what you do, say, on how you move, and when you do it. And the first thing they will do to a new artist once they sign is to brand them and put them into a certain image. Y'all was talking about how it's all an image, it's all a persona. But one common denominator between most of these artists is that they're signed to a label. And if now we know a label pushes an image and a brand, I want to ask you as the viewer, why would these labels want to create a satanic image? Let's talk about it. It's not only satanic imagery, they also promote images that are also evil, like violence, sex, drugs, and many other unmoral activities. Now we gotta all ask this, why is this image being pushed? And most importantly, the biggest image being pushed is that you can do whatever you want. You are your own God. Now we gotta remember, what is Satan's slogan? Do as thou will. And look at what the music he produces pushes. Now, let's talk about how he uses artists and how labels use an artist. Now, like we said before, labels will pick a person off of influence. And if you don't believe me, go and actually do your research on how labels see the music industry, not as you as a consumer, because I had to learn this myself as well. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, and when you dig into it, you'll understand, is that music is hypnotizing, and that's why it has such a strong effect on a person and a whole community as a whole. That's why the music influence in a culture is so important. When you hear the same song hundreds of times, constantly on repeat, it automatically gets implanted in your head, whether you like it or not. That's why those songs that you say suck, the catchy stuff is in your head still. Now, another thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is when these artists get pushed by these labels and they turn these artists into stars, into idols, and make people idolize them and make people worship them through their music. What do you think is happening behind the scenes? Now we can already see where this is going. As it says in one of the first 10 commandments, do not idolize nobody. And now this is nothing new, because we can obviously see this in today's society. If you literally just go down in the comment section in my previous video, you can see tens of people going extremely hard trying to defend somebody they don't know. Why? Because they make good music and they don't understand how big of an influence this person actually is in their life now. So much that they're willing to defend them over the will of God just because they make good music. Now, what do they do with these artists? Well, what they do is they project them to such a high point in life. Think about it. The artists have all the big houses, all the crazy jewelry, all the cars, all the women, all the status. They put them at such a high position for you to idolize this person and take your eyes away from the one true God. But what do? They use this as an agenda. They use the agenda of, you're your own God. You can do whatever you want. And they use these artists to project this message. And what does this do? It causes destruction to the world. It causes increase to sex, sexual immorality. It causes increased violence. And it also causes an immense push for drug abuse and drug use, pushed by not only just rap, but almost every other genre talks about these crazy things. Now, the main purpose of this video is to spread the truth on the destruction the world is going towards. And the biggest destruction is being influenced by this music. For a second, let's just take a step back and watch what's going on around us. Look at what people like the City Girls, Megan Thee Stallion, look at what they have created in the woman's side of female listeners. Let's take a look at what the drill music has done to our young men. We're seeing women being completely destroyed, and we're seeing men being completely destroyed. And this goes for all genres. And time again, these artists show us what side they're on. These artists portray, these artists tell us what they're doing. They tell us the destruction and they say what side they're on. Let's just take a look at album covers, song titles, things they actually say in their lyric. But we are always giving them the benefit of the doubt, years on years on years. None of this stuff is new, it's just getting worse. But we must always remember to take a step back and really think on what is influencing us in our lives, because us as Christians should only be influenced by one man only, and that name is Jesus Christ. But if we're influenced by these other things, we have to beware of this, because these artists, these idols are literally only puppets pushed by a major label, which is pushing a whole crazy ass agenda. For example, if you can tell yourself, I'm not able to go without listening to a particular person, you are way too deep into it. You are way too influenced it. And ultimately, you need to take it to God for him to break it. A lot of people were in my comment section talking about they can't go without listening to a particular person. And I'm here praying for you as well. But what we need to realize is that, just like we said before, this music stuff be hypnotizing. It's strong for a reason. So you listening to someone for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and trust me, I would know. You know how many people said all my friends are dead because Lil Uzi said it? You know how many people are now saying Satanism and hell is cool because Playboi Carti is saying it? It's influence. It's more than just music. I challenge you, take 1 month off. Don't listen to music for a month. Replace it with things that actually better your relationship with Christ and watch your life change. Now, always remember the key message here. Make sure you follow Christ. And if you are an artist out there, remain independent.
Here's my thing. If you play with the devil, he gonna play back. Right? When you look in the scriptures, it says like your father Satan is a liar. He's the father of lies. He's been lying from the beginning. I would say most of them do that for shock value and just to like, ha ha, look at me. I'm such a rebel. I'm moving, I'm coloring outside the lines. But you know, even like Bone Thugs and Harmony, I think they've even mentioned like they didn't really know what they were doing. It was like people at the label and stuff who were telling them to continue doing this type of stuff. But really, it's about getting us to not pay attention to God and goodness and to pay attention to lies. I mean, that's what he did in the garden. It wasn't like he was like, Adam and Eve, burn these candles and dance around the tree. It was like, I just want you to believe that what God said is a lie.